Hello and welcome back. Quick question. What actually separates a thriving Darknet market from a complete disaster? It's a good question, right? Is it technical expertise? Is it a user-first approach? Or is it just basic common sense? Before we actually get into everything, I want to say that you should never actually use Darknet markets, do or sell any types of drugs. It's bad, okay?
Now, let's focus our discussion first on marijuana. Marijuana's bad, and it also has a very distinct smell, okay?
As we celebrate Alice Market's 1-year anniversary, which stands out as an example, by the way, of what actually works, and in a relatively short time frame, I would say, it's hard not to actually laugh or cringe, depending on which side of the aisle you're actually on, at markets like Vortex, whose every move seems basically kind of designed to sabotage themselves. Virtually nothing is worse on a darknet or in that ecosphere than a darknet market admin who shoots themselves in the foot, which, we seemingly have a lot of that lately. If you've ever actually wanted a live case study of what not to do, stick around. But first off, before we get into all that, let's just, do something we don't actually get to do all that often here, especially when we talk about this kind of stuff. And let's talk about good news. This good news comes in the form of a birthday party. And it's not for any human being, though. It's for Alice Market, which has seen a year so far. They basically made their announcement or put it up anyways publicly from what I was able to dig up, November 20th of 2023. And that actually marked a pretty significant milestone in the Darknet world. The 1-year anniversary of a Darknet market is kind of foreboding. It was launched by a guy named Giphy, and sorry if I totally botched your name, and Code Shadow. The market was built on the premise of being a secure, reliable, and user-friendly platform, a goal that many markets claim, but few actually tend to achieve. And in just under a month from its original debut, Alice actually reached a pretty early growth milestone on December 15th of 2023, boasting 200 users and 200 vendors and 30 product listings, which definitely is not a lot, but in the paranoid world of the Darknet, even that is an accomplishment at the end of the day. Now, this was no small feat for a new market in a competitive and highly skeptical environment. Along with the clean UI and UX, they also have to thank the fact that they got Hourglass, who is kind of a machine on Dread, more or less, I would say. He has 5,000 comments or over 5,000 and 270 posts in the 2 years he's been on Dread for, which, is nuts. And they managed to snag him as one of the admins for them. Now, fast forwarding today, Alice Market has emerged as kind of a trusted name in the short amount of time they've been around for, right? And trust is a very arbitrary thing. It can be gone tomorrow. But to celebrate their anniversary, I wanted to give them a shout out and let them know happy birthday, because those good things should also be recognized. And, point out their vendor bond of $50, which is no more, but it used to be. They had a 1% flat fee at one point, which is insane. The professionalism and steady growth and user-friendly mindset of Alice definitely kind of contradicts the kind of chaotic missteps of other markets. Chief among them is Vortex Market. Among others, of course, we've had many videos on other markets, but Vortex Market, gets to get kicked in the face today. It's basically kind of like a masterclass in mismanagement. Now, while Atlas shines as a kind of an example of building a darknet market correctly, Vortex Market is, I don't like it at all. I'm not, I'm totally, I try to remove bias for myself, but I just hate this market. I think it's stupid. It's as if the admin, Hector, set out to showcase every operational blunder possible publicly. So I have like 5 main topics that I kind of want to hit on in regard to this. The first one is UDP DDoS mitigation, which is like Hector's fiction, right? He made a post addressing ongoing DDoS issues that the site was facing. And I swear, it's like just to be able to say that they're actually facing issues like all the other markets. But Hector suggested using IP table rules to block UDP-based attacks. Like, he said that he did this as a way to fend off DDoS attacks. On the surface, this might absolutely seem reasonable if it weren't for one particularly relatively glaring issue, and that's that Tor doesn't actually support UDP. Like, this isn't some kind of esoteric or obscure knowledge. It's explicitly stated in the Tails OS documentation and widely understood in the community in general. Tor operates exclusively over TCP, so blocking UDP does absolutely nothing to actually mitigate the attacks targeting Tor-based services. If you're going to admit that you know nothing about anything, this is probably the one of the most obvious ways to do it. So it kind of raises an important question, right? And that's like, did Hector even read anything about Tor before actually posting or creating his market? Or is it like, simply just him posting to try to look like he's actually doing something, like he's being attacked too with all the other markets? This level of ignorance is absolutely unacceptable for someone running an actual darknet marketplace where trust in the admin's technical competence is absolutely critical. And it's a thing that might determine if people, go out of business or get busted, or, there's a wide range of bad things that can happen. It's not just incompetence, it's a dangerous lack of misunderstanding or a total lack of understanding that could easily compromise the entire market's reliability and, by default, user trust. Now, on his website, right, this is the second thing, you visit Vortex's Onion site, and basically you're greeted with this note reminding you to use the Tor browser. And we'll pause here for a minute. This is an Onion site. So by design, you kind of need to use Tor to be able to access it anyway. This redundant advice that they give isn't, not only is it unnecessary, but it's also kind of patronizing to the audience, right? Like, Vortex is supposedly trying to attract a bunch of people on the darknet. It's kind of like putting up a sign at a car dealership that says, "You need a car to drive here." I'm sorry. It's just idiocy at its finest. This kind of, not even hand-holding, but misunderstood hand-holding isn't just misplaced. It's really insulting to the individuals who are going to be using the site or possibly using it. That's indicative of the admin who thinks that the users are absolutely as clueless as he is. Now, the third thing I saw, and this is just a quick visit to the site, was that they have this statement that there's no KYC. They, basically have this, prominently displayed as no KYC on the site as a some kind of selling point. But what does this even mean in the context of a darknet market, right? We don't want any of your identifying papers here. The entire premise of these markets is anonymity. There is no, know your customer or KYC requirement by default. There never has been on any darknet market. Nor has any admin been like, "Hey, give us your IDs." It just really shows complete absence of something that isn't even expected in the first place, and absolutely, again, just reeks of a fundamental misunderstanding of anything in this environment. And then we have the cherry on top, which is a copyright banner at the bottom. But think about this, on a platform that facilitates illegal activity, Vortex is asserting intellectual property rights over its branding and its layout. It's absolutely laughable to imagine Hector attempting to sue someone for replicating the site on the ClearNet, right? You sue me in court. Oh, well, they stole my Darknet website. Now, it's a Darknet market, right? Not a Fortune 500 company. Like, they do compete in terms of making money. There are absolutely Darknet markets that have made crazy, crazy amounts of money. But what I'm saying is no Darknet market admin is going to bring someone to federal court because they stole portions of their website, right? Like a user called Drug Hub pointed out the same thing. And in regards to the whole UDP thing and how it's just absolute misunderstanding here of a Darknet market admin was really mind-blowing. And it still gets even worse. In a kind of cringeworthy response, Hector actually defended his, idiotic statement in regards to the first thing we were talking about, the whole UDP thing, by saying it was his first market. And that's like painfully obvious, Hector. Like, you don't need to tell us it's painfully obvious. We know it's your first market. Like the complete lack of professionalism, or like imagine a Darknet market admin that has to be told what Tor is. Right? Like running a market isn't the place for first timers to just learn as they go. Mistakes in this arena can absolutely put people in serious risk, like we talked about before. But like just the total cluelessness of this Darknet market admin really is absolutely a red flag all day. And if we're whittling down to like smaller issues now, I would point out like, even the way that he communicates shows disregard for any kind of competence whatsoever. This guy critiques him, tells him how to make it more efficient. His sheepish acknowledgement is to say, it's his first market. It's almost as if he's proud of his incompetence. And this absolutely reminds me of the buffoonery that we saw with the admin from the black hole market, which was another absolute amateur who thought running a market was, just some easy ride that he was going to, learn some HTML and CSS and start up a market. And spoiler alert, it wasn't. It ended up in flames. And Hector seemed to be well on, the same path. It's probably the same guy. Who knows? So when we look at these two markets kind of side by side, Atlas and Vortex, right? Why is it that one does such a good job and the other is just complete trash? I would say that they boil down to things like professionalism, definitely technical expertise, and understanding of the actual community. For example, technical competence. Atlas has demonstrated a pretty decent grasp, not exceptional, but definitely a clear grasp of technical requirements for running a market. And they've done so for a year. While they're doing that, Vortex flounders with nonsensical advice, amateur syntax, basic oversights, lack of understanding of Tor, yelling at people on the forums. Atlas actually took the time to establish a solid infrastructure, while Vortex feels slapped together by someone who's still, learning the basics of HTML and Tor. And then we look at things like user experience, right? Atlas focuses on usability and trust building, offering incentives like reduced fees and vendor bonds, which they had for almost their whole time. It was the highest vendor bond I think I saw in Atlas was $150, which is great. That's a fairly recent thing. I think up to then it's been $50. But, Vortex has this clunky navigation, stupid messages with no KYC, this dumb crap that is self-evident, right? Whereas Atlas actually kind of shows respect to its users. Vortex disrespects them by assuming they're as clueless as they are. And we also see this disrespect in the forum, by the way, by Hector, and trust in the community. This comes from those things where Atlas, steadily grew its user base by kind of showing some kind of reliability and transparency and professionalism. From what I saw, they gave a lot of updates on what was going on with their site, which is respectable and commendable. You don't have that with, Vortex. Vortex literally makes up solutions to problems that don't exist, like UDP, DDoS, is just nonsensical statements like that. And those differences really, really show us the important truth behind a lot of this. Successful markets are built on things, foundations of competence and trust, where like Hector's dumbass statement of like, well, it's my first market, excuse might actually explain some of Vortex's failings, but more so it, explains or shows us that he just doesn't know what he's talking about. The Darknet really isn't a place for trial and error. It's not a place for amateur web developers to hone their skills. Trust and reputation, all those things are absolutely on the line, especially when you have a market, right? Like with a vendor, they can change their name, they can change their PGP. That's a fairly easy process. They'll have to reboot, but they'll be good. With a market, that's a lot harder to do. So it's the success of Atlas, though, shows us to some degree a good kind of short case study on how to actually run a marketplace. Not that I'm saying you should, because you shouldn't. If you have the skills to do that, go make 6 figures at a company so the feds don't take everything. But by focusing on technical competence, user trust, and community building, Atlas has set a pretty good standard that others would do well to emulate. On the flip side, Vortex absolutely serves as a cautionary tale for all those things, right? A reminder that lack of preparation and understanding will absolutely quickly erode credibility. And you'll have people in the comments calling you a moron, and you'll have me making a video about it laughing at you. So here's the question. What do you personally value most in a darknet market, right? Is it like professionalism or innovation or like, I don't know, just a good laugh at the circus of incompetence? Obviously, that question is totally hypothetically posed because none of us have used, or ever will use a darknet market. That's the legal disclaimer, make the lawyers happy. I will never vouch for any market whatsoever. I will point out features on a market, say I like certain things. That's one thing. I don't trust any markets, nor should you. But in closing, I want to say big time shout out and thank you to Andy Turbo, who is constantly supporting this channel. I really, really appreciate you. I appreciate it more than you actually know or will ever know. And as always, I appreciate everyone tuning in and watching to the end, and I will see you in the next video.